morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, which just so happens to be the last morning movie news of 2015. And speaking of the end of the year, time is running out for you to cast your vote for the top 10 movies of 2015. Thank you everybody who has already voted, and I am very excited to announce that as of this morning, we have more votes this year than ever before in what is an annual tradition here at Beyond the Trailer. Also, very exciting, Mad Max Fury Road has rallied and is in within 100 votes of Star Wars The Force Awakens for the best movie of the year. So make sure your voice is counted, that you are heard, that you either throw your support behind Star Wars, Mad Max, or another contender, and then stay tuned for the results of that poll next week. Now you have until the end of the day on January 2nd to vote, and as I said yesterday, even if you haven't seen all the movies that came out in 2015, or at least all the movies that you want to see, just get your vote in, because again, you will have no one to blame but yourself if you're frustrated with the results when they're announced next week. But it's shaping up to be a very heated contest, so that always makes it more fun. So the link is in the video description, and let's get on with today's episode, which is an all-viewer question episode. And just like yesterday, I've added a bonus one, so there are 5 viewer questions. As for Morning Movie News, it will return on Monday, January 4th. All right, so the first question is from Darcy Keating. What a great name, Darcy. So Darcy says, "Hey Grace, love your vids and opinions. Thank you. I've got a question. With Avatar 2, Avatar 3, and Avatar 4 coming out in the following years, do you think that 20th Century Fox will re-release the original Avatar to get it first across the $3 billion line, depending, of course, on Star Wars? Thanks for keeping up the good work, Darcy." Well, here's my thoughts on this. Avatar really existed in a very special place. I think a little bit like Star Wars The Force Awakens, where some people were left scratching their heads, being like, why does everyone like this so much? And others were like, I remember I was doing audience reviews at the time, and someone actually said, "Oh, this is better than Star Wars." And I was like, what? So, Avatar was equally divisive, perhaps even more so, because as time has passed, I think, just as I think many of us suspect will happen with The Force Awakens, people took off their rose-colored glasses and were like, I see some of the flaws. Although, you can't debate James Cameron's success. The man is a genius. He not only is a technological wizard, but he really knows how to implement soap opera aspects into his movies, which just get huge mass appeal. He did the same thing with Titanic. But anyway, the point of what I'm saying, Darcy, is that I think Avatar, they don't want to bring up a debate again as to whether or not the first Avatar was any good, right? I think they don't want to open that Pandora's box. So if I were Fox, I'd be like, I would focus just as the Star Wars ad campaign has on the legacy, the franchise, that box office number. I think that Star Wars, by the way, is probably going to be extremely front-loaded. Everyone's seeing it right now. I don't know if it's going to make it to past the 2.7 billion mark where Avatar currently sits. I think it's unlikely, but I do think it's very likely that it will pass Jurassic World to become the 3rd highest grossing film of all time behind Titanic. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, we'll probably know in the next couple of months. But anyway, I think that Avatar is probably pretty safe with its box office trophy, so that's what I would tout. If I were Fox, I'd play up James Cameron's pedigree. I'd play up how much everybody loved it, the theme park that they're building in Orlando at Animal Kingdom, Disney's Animal Kingdom. I would just play up the franchise more than the film itself, and hope that that works. Also, I'm sure that James Cameron has made a lot of technological advancements with the film. That was really one of the main reasons to go see the first Avatar. A lot of people went to see it because of the 3D. It was the best of its time. So I'm sure they'll be really trying to promote that as well and being like, oh, the technological advancements. Like, you might not have liked the first Avatar, but you got to see this one because it's so much more advanced and fascinating. But also, I would like to point out that he's hired really good screenwriters to help him. For instance, 2 of my favorites, the team of Jaffa Silver, who worked on the Planet of the Apes movies, and The Relic back in the day, one of my favorite old movies. So they're incredibly talented, and they actually left to some degree the Apes franchise to go work on Avatar, and they're really good when it comes to writing science. So Jaffa Silver, I trust them to deliver better quality material than the first Avatar. But we'll see. That's what I think is going to happen. And I think you're going to see, we'll have another question about nostalgia later on in the episode. So I guess we'll pick up this conversation then. All right. Well, actually, let's go to that question next because I think it ties in perfectly to what we were just talking about. I had put it last, but I can move things around, right? Okay. So next up is from 136 Jellyfish. Awesome. Hello, Grace. Longtime BTT viewer from London. Hello across the pond. And I never feel like my questions are interesting enough. You never know. Always put them up there. However, now I have a question I hope that you answer. Smiley face. I am answering it. I've been reading everywhere about how Star Wars Episode 7 is basically Star Wars Episode 4 and how people have realized that but haven't choked on their popcorn, revealing they'd be so shocked. They'd be like, right in the middle of eating popcorn, it would get lodged in their throat. I like that. I think that's funny. But anyway, revealing how much they enjoy their nostalgia. Well, with how Hollywood is going for the nostalgia remakes rather than original new films, is this the sign of the end of new, fresh works? Everything is in a sequel or just an homage to a previous film, and new films are hotly shot down, reference the prequel Star Wars episodes, so few fans exist compared to the sequels, meaning potential work on those films was stunted. Jar Jar, for instance. Sorry about that. Okay, I just worry for the future of films. Anyhow, amazing work as always. Hope you're having a lovely day and holiday. Thank you, XOXO. I am having a lovely holiday. Hope you are too, Jellyfish. And I think that you have an interesting point. I would like to factor in Jurassic World there as well. And also, a lot of the movies at the top 10 these days, the highest grossing films of all time, have a very strong nostalgia factor. Although, like for instance, Furious 7, Minions, they're all sequels. But I would like to point out very much so that the James Cameron movies, are original ideas. Although, some would argue how original Avatar is, as it's basically Pocahontas in space. But that's pretty genius. I mean, a log line, the simpler you can make it, that just really captures people's attention, the better you have in terms of selling that idea. And James Cameron, again, really did a fantastic job with that. I mean, that's easy to grasp. Pocahontas in space. Okay, I'll try it. All right, so anyway, I think that in terms of nostalgia, well, Hollywood is definitely going to, I think, double down on this, triple down on it, because there's just so much money at play. And also, because of the nostalgia factor, it's allowing them to tap into money that they haven't been able to get to with original movies. Like we've discussed many times on this show, that it's been revealed by surveys that a large number of people, particularly in the United States, and actually across the globe, don't really go to the movies. You know, most people see one movie a month, if that. So Hollywood is trying very hard to get their hands on that money. And that's how you can get such big box office grosses like Star Wars The Force Awakens so quickly, because everybody is mobilized to go to see the film. And that's just that really illustrates how many people usually don't see movies, right? Because if most people enjoyed movies in the theater, it would be this crowded and they'd be pulling in this kind of money all the time. But that's how small of a fraction of the world audience Hollywood actually convinced to go to a theater. So that's unfortunate. I think there's a price issue going on. I think television has become so competitive, and of course it's much cheaper and in some cases free. Or there's just like a streaming service, nominal fee each month, and you can get so much content for that. And also video games. So Hollywood's really suffering in that regard. That's why I think earlier on, before the rise of television and video games, etc., you had movies do much better that were original ideas. Sound of Music, Gone with the Wind, although of course Gone with the Wind based on a famous book. But there really wasn't anything else to do but go to the movies, right? Or sit on your front porch and talk. But some people still do that. Radio just isn't quite as compelling. But although some old radio plays are quite good. But anyway, Hollywood now, they have a really competitive market, and they're going to take whatever edge they can, and so you're going to see a lot of nostalgia factors. However, I would feel really nice about the fact that there are some original movies that are doing very well and are getting a lot of attention. I think, for instance, The Martian was a big movie this year. Kingsman: The Secret Service impressed a lot of people. And while a lot of people were disgusted by it, 50 Shades of Grey was a really big film. So was American Sniper. I mean, these are controversial films, but they get audiences into the theater because they appeal to a wide, group, a wide swath of people, and they mobilize them to go into the theater. A lot of cases, those are books, true stories, but those have always been the things that have driven Hollywood since its inception. So I don't think that original ideas are dead, but you have kind of like this hyperdrive of movie that's emerging, this bringing back an old franchise that's so beloved that is, I think, going to, for at least for a little while, really grip Hollywood. So as I said before, I think you should almost definitely see a return of Jaws, almost definitely see a return of Back to the Future. I know some of you say that Robert Zemeckis has vowed that will not happen, but have you seen the gross for The Walk? I think Steven Spielberg might be able to convince him, especially because Jurassic World and Star Wars have been so well received. Not by everyone, but I think overall the box office is so strong, and I think for the most part there are a lot of people who enjoyed those films, although everyone's throwing Jurassic World under the bus now to promote Star Wars, just like they're throwing Mad Max under the bus, but still, I think I wouldn't be too concerned. I think Jellyfish, overall, you want Hollywood to make a lot of money because that's what's going to keep them around, and that money is going to fuel more original films. So, interesting situation, but expect many more franchises to be brought back after this kind of phenomenal success. All right, so next question comes from Kingson24601. And Kingston says, "Hey Grace, love the show. Been watching it for almost 3 years and it's super good." Oh, that makes me feel so nice. Thank you. Thank you for sticking with me. I'm glad it's a part of your routine. Thank you for making me a part of your movie fandom. So Kingston24601 continues saying, "I watch it every day while eating lunch. I love knowing how you guys enjoy morning movie news." So continuing saying, "I thought I'd finally ask a question." Excellent. You mentioned fan fiction and how sometimes films may change a storyline to feed the fan base. I talked about this earlier this week with some of the rumors about Star Wars. So anyway, Kingston continues saying, "This just got me thinking. To what extent do filmmakers take the audience's wishes into account while making franchises? Do they even keep an eye on fan fiction and take note of what is popular and what isn't? And do you think fans' attitudes towards a franchise or a character can actually change the storyline to suit audience favor? Keep up the great work and can't wait for more videos." A bunch of smiley faces, emojis no less. Well, Kingston, I can think of a great example of fan fiction having a big influence on a franchise, but it's not in a movie. It's actually on the small screen on television with The Legend of Korra. There were a lot of Kasami shippers, Korra and Asami, and they ended up becoming a couple at the end of the series. Viewers picked up on that first, that perhaps romantic tension between the characters, and the creators decided to go that route to explore it because they were like, I guess maybe there is something here. So those of you who are shipping Poe and Finn, keep your fingers crossed. So anyway, I don't think that Finn is a potential gay character as we discussed earlier this week, but I do think that there is that potential for Poe Dameron in a constructive manner. I know some of you didn't like that idea, but I think that's the whole point, that it shouldn't change the Poe Dameron character at all, because that would be the whole point of making his character gay. But anyway, as for fan fiction, I think that studios are keeping an eye on it, particularly with the way movies were brought down in 2015. Fantastic Four, Pixels even to some degree, which was seriously, cut off at the knees by video game fans, and that community just like assassinated that film, which was a solid family comedy in my opinion. So I was really surprised to see how effective the gaming community was in just tearing that movie down. And I know a number of people have liked Pixels, by the way, so that audience does exist. But a lot of people didn't discover Pixels; they just never even looked at it because there was such anger and hate coming at it through the internet. So the internet has really given a megaphone and a voice, not just a voice, but a megaphone to certain types of fans who are willing to take the time to utilize that megaphone. And Hollywood is, feeling the effects of that in both a positive and negative manner. So I think that it would be dangerous if Hollywood allowed that to lead them, and that was my concern. That's what I brought up. That's what Kingston is referring to. But I also think that they should keep an eye on it. I think if a character is very popular, yes, of course, that character would get, more attention, perhaps their own movie. I think that is very important. I think that everyone's love of Harry Hart and Kingsman is one of the reasons that they're like, can we bring him back for Kingsman 2? Because he was just such a great character. I think Furiosa, the love of Furiosa has been heard, and it's why Warner Brothers is seriously considering a Furiosa standalone movie, as one of their options to continue with that franchise if they do choose to continue. I think probably, if it gets those Oscar noms, it probably will. But anyway, so yes, I think that they do listen, but I think it's a very tricky balance, and I think that Hollywood needs to, they're the horse, not the cart, and so I think you want to get the audience. there's that saying, the customer is always right. But I think when you're creating art, I think sometimes you have to realize, and I treat movies very much like a business, but they're a marriage of business and art. So the business side is the customer is always right, but then you have to realize that sometimes they don't know everything that's an option. Maybe they didn't think of an idea that a creator has. Who would have ever dreamed up George Miller's Mad Max or Matthew Vaughn and Mark Miller's Kingsman? And those are just absolutely amazing things that have just captured everybody's attention immediately. How about Frozen? That came out of nowhere. Who would have ever thought a pair of sisters would capture people's attention the way that it did? So I think it's very important to pay attention to what the audience wants. But I think the one place that Hollywood really does have to listen to is representation, because I think that that's something that's coming to a head, and I think that audiences want to see more of themselves on the screen. And that's something that Hollywood really has to pay attention to. And they have to get rid of stereotypes. And I think for a long time Hollywood's been stuck a little bit in the 1950s and 60s in the way they portrayed different groups, demographics, and that's something that really needs to be pulled into 2015. And I think J.J. Abrams, to his credit, has tried to do that, but I think he was a little sloppy and a little bit old-fashioned in the way that he did it, creating a Mary Sue and creating Finn being, unfortunately, a very stereotyped character. I know it wasn't originally written for a black actor, but they should have changed some of the elements that were associated with the character once they made that casting decision, because it came across so unfortunately to so many people. And also, they set everybody up for a horrible disappointment with the way they misdirected the ad campaign. So anyway, so yes, it's a fine line, but I hope that studios keep their heads about them and realize that they have a lot to contribute to. They shouldn't just be, I guess that's what I'm saying, they shouldn't just be doing like fan service. They should be trying to give people wonderful movies. All right, so thank you, Kingson. So the next question is from Great Broadway Fan. Speaking of award season, Great Broadway Fan says, Grace, I have a question about movies in Hollywood that I hope you can clear up for me. Why is it that films that get nominated at the major major televised award shows come out so early, and by the time these award shows roll around, the films aren't in theaters anymore and aren't available on DVD to rent? Why does award season start so early, and why can't we watch these films that are getting nominated in major categories? Hope you answer my question. Love your channel and watch it every day. P.S. When I tell people Mad Max is a frontrunner for Best Picture, everyone I talk to tells me that movie sucks. Why is that? Well, Great Broadway Fan, as I said, everyone's turned on Mad Max because they want Star Wars to get in the front. It's really kind of sad because Mad Max is a work of art. It's genius. It's so fascinating, and Mad Max being a work of art doesn't take anything away from what Star Wars is, which is a fun ride that revives the franchise. So I don't understand why one must die for the other to live. That's not true. And the fact that anyone thinks Star Wars is going to win Best Picture is like the absolute, if someone says that to you, they are just a hardcore Star Wars fan. And I'm glad they're so happy and they love the movie so much and they want to celebrate it and want to give it everything they can. It's like a proud parent being just like, I love it so much, I want it to have everything. But at the end of the day, that person's heavily biased and it's just doesn't make any sense. So keep your love of Mad Max, and I just realized that I think a lot of award voters still realize how great that movie is. But anyway, as for your question, the reason I wanted to include it is that either last year or the year before, there was some discussion of maybe making all the Best Picture nominees, at the very least, available for streaming the week of the awards shows for the Oscars, because so many people hadn't seen the movies, which is often the case because they tend to gravitate for the most part towards smaller films, although I think that might change this year, which is very exciting because I think Mad Max and The Martian are going to be huge frontrunners. And also see movies like Spy and Trainwreck nominated for the Golden Globes is very exciting. But anyway, that was an idea, not only to be nice, but also to help viewership for the awards shows, particularly the Oscars, because they said, well, the reason nobody's tuning in is because they haven't seen these movies and they don't want to root for them. There's nothing to root for because they don't know what they're rooting for potentially. So I thought that was a great idea. I'm sad that it hasn't come to be fully realized yet or realized at all. But the reason that they don't wait so long is that, it's a time issue. Like if you had the award shows, they're already at the end of February, close to March. And I think that if you had them any later, then you're going to start getting into everybody paying attention to the summer movies, right? As it is, February has become a huge movie-going month with a lot of blockbusters. Look at this February. It's amazing with Deadpool, Zoolander 2, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, all these, Hail Caesar. It's going to be an amazing month. So the Oscars has to compete with that as it is. So I just think what they really should do is keep the awards show where it is, but make the major movies that get the nomination, make them available for streaming for a reasonable price online. So that, do it through the Oscar website if you want to. Get some traffic there. And I think that would be a really smart idea, and everybody would really enjoy it. Because you know what? People who get to vote, or even just in the industry, get these screeners. They make the rounds in the industry. People pass them off to friends. That's how they get leaked online. But why not, do that to the fans as well? Why not kind of give them the streaming equivalent, the screener equivalent, so that they can have a good time and enjoy the award shows as much as everybody who voted. All right, so that's the answer to your question, Great Broadway fan. Viewership, making sure people care, and that's a potential way to solve the problem. All right, so the final question of the day comes from Eli Mason. And Eli says, "Hey Grace, I have a question. The other day I overheard some people talk about how they did not want to see X-Men Apocalypse because of how Apocalypse is represented as God and how the movie correlates with events in the Bible. Do you think the decision to bring up religious aspects in the film will prove to be a mistake? How far do you think the film may go? Do you think that will be enough to turn people off to the movie? Personally, I cannot wait to see the movie or to see your review. Thanks so much, Grace." A bunch of cute smiley faces, particularly the new one, with the glasses and the cute little buck teeth. I like that one a lot. They need more emojis, though. I've already run through all the new ones. But anyway, Eli, that's a fantastic question, and I touched on that in my shot-by-shot review of the first X-Men Apocalypse trailer. I think that not only the bringing in religious aspects at all, but also, kind of representing Apocalypse as a Middle Eastern character who's, threatening the West. I thought that was, not really what we need right now in trying to, not have, hate crimes against Muslims and, trying to, not categorize a whole religion and people and part of the world as evil. I think that's really bad, and I think that X-Men Apocalypse certainly doesn't want to contribute to that. And so I get very nervous, and I think obviously you do too, and you're seeing evidence of it, that some people could misconstrue the film. Like, I would hate for someone to say, "You want any more evidence that, the Middle East is evil? Just go look at X-Men Apocalypse, the latest summer blockbuster." And I'd be like, "What? That's ridiculous." So I think that, the character of Apocalypse does hail from Egypt, but as I said, it would have been nice to include a character like Dust, who, wears a traditional Muslim garb as an X-Men hero in the film, to show that there are Muslim heroic mutant characters as well. I think that would have been great to balance things out. And they're going to be in that part of the world, so why wouldn't you do that? But anyway, as for the religious aspects of the film, just in general, I would never count out how strongly people can react to what they feel is a slight at religion. That is something to take very seriously. You can see how it's affected politics, at least here in the United States. I'm not quite sure how it is abroad. And religion is a very personal and serious matter. And I think that I don't know if a movie needs to go there, especially if it's popcorn fare. So I think that line about the Bible and all the different, religious words for God for different religions that have been associated with Apocalypse, I don't think that was necessary. And I think, I hope it doesn't come back to hurt the movie, because the movie does look good and I am excited to see it too. But I would hate to be watching it being like, well, this is unfortunate. I think you've just upset a lot of people for no reason. And also let's see how well it's done. Indiana Jones referenced a lot of religious aspects in The Last Crusade, but I think in a little bit more of a respectful manner. And also, and also it wasn't trying to rewrite religion. It was just something that was incorporating it. This is trying to say, the Bible is actually a story about Apocalypse, a fictional character. And I think that might be a step too far. So we'll see. We'll see how it works out. But again, I would, look at how some religious films perform at the box office. For instance, at the end of the summer, they were dominating the top 10. So I think that audience is definitely, that movie-going audience is definitely out there. They're vocal, and the last thing Fox needs is for them to become vocal against this film. So we'll see. I think it's interesting you've already heard that. Has anyone else heard that? And does anyone feel does anyone feel the same way? Were they slighted by the X-Men Apocalypse trailer? And do you think that the movie needs that aspect to succeed? I've never seen it in the comics, so or at least anything I can recall, so I don't know why it was put in the movie. It didn't need to be. It's not like it's coming from the source material either. All right, so that's today's morning movie news. Thank you everybody for your questions. I did save some other questions, so if you didn't hear your question today, there's a chance you might hear it on an upcoming episode. But thank you very much, everybody who submitted a question. Don't forget to vote, and Morning Movie News will be back on Monday, January 4th. However, there will be a sprinkling of programming on the main Beyond the Trailer channel over the holiday, the New Year's holiday. All right, have a wonderful New Year's, everybody. Bye.